It's been for these pretty good.
Yeah. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Just depends.
With your 20 kids, that's not bad. When you add a couple next year, that's good.
And they're recorded, so.
Yeah, that works. I can go back and construct myself.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LionSide Chat series. We're going to get started in just a minute. If you want to just check your audio devices, make sure that your audio is on. We will get started in just a few minutes, just a minute or so. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Penn State Berks LionSide Chats. My name is Ryan Hassler. I'm one of the 3 LionSide Chat moderators working alongside Don Pfeiffer-Wrights and Sonia De La Cueto. Come on in and welcome to our campus. We are so glad that you could join us today. Before we get started, we do want to share that you should please feel free throughout the entire webinar to submit your questions through the question and answer feature. We will not be utilizing the raise the hand feature today. Once the presentation concludes, we will facilitate a discussion with our presenter. We will also be recording today's session, so you can revisit the topic or even share the experience with friends and family. Now, we are excited to introduce Mr. Tyler Wackley. Tyler's a 2020 Penn State Berks grad, business marketing major, management major with a psychology minor, who is currently an inside sales specialist at Gai-Tronics. So welcome, Tyler. He will be speaking about professional networking. So I will invite you to share, Tyler, and I look forward to your talk.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, cool. So, as Dr. Hassler said, my name is Tyler Wackley. I'm a 2020 graduate of Penn State Berks, and like he also said, I'm currently an inside sales specialist working at Gai-Tronics, a Hubble company, local, right in Reading, actually, in Muhlenberg, right off of Kutztown Road. Probably never heard of it, but that's okay. So, today, as he said, I'm going to talk about networking, the importance of it, all that good stuff, why it's useful for everybody, college-age students, adults, everybody can benefit from networking. So to start off, let's talk about what is networking. So according to the Webster's Dictionary, networking is the exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions, specifically the cultivation of productive relationships for employment and business. So while all that is true and accurate, there's more. So networking is more than just speaking with people, getting to know people, building professional relationships. Networking is all-encompassing. It's how you present yourself, it's how you act, it's how you are in a professional setting, how you get your work done. Everything falls under that category of networking, in my opinion. It's more than just this relationship building, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later, and why that whole all-encompassing term that I'm using networking for is so important. So, as I just said, it's not just talking. It's the way you act, it's the way you dress, it's showing up on time, it's getting your work done, it's going above and beyond and doing that little extra step to show either your professor or your employer or your coworkers that you're there, you mean business, you want to get your job done, you want to do it well, and you want to do it correctly. So, when do I network? Well, in short, the answer is always. You are always networking. A lot of people tend to think that you only network at a job or you only network when you're looking for a job. That's really not the case. You can always be networking you do sorts of networking from the time you're little, but from the time you're in high school, college on up, you can always network. And that goes to say whether you're at your job, whether you're at school, whether you're at home with your friends, you can always be networking. And the sooner you start, the better. So there's a whole lot of resources out there that you can network even now during this whole COVID pandemic where you're not really out and about as much as you were before. There's still resources out there, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But you can never network too early. And here I have this lovely point on the weekend too. So like I said, you can literally network anywhere. It doesn't just need to be during the hours of 9 to 5 when you're at your job or when you're in the classroom. It can be whenever. You could be out with your friends doing something on the weekend. You meet somebody, talk to them, strike up a conversation. It doesn't even need to be professionally or business or engineering or English, whatever you're into. It doesn't need to be related to that. It could be about anything. You can really form a relationship with someone with any base, as long as you kind of share a common ground with that person, and then eventually build that up. And then one day that could turn into a professional relationship versus a more friendly relationship. So where do I network? Again, short answer, at work. So this could again be with your coworkers, with your managers, with the higher ups, anything like that. And we'll again touch on that in a little bit more. And then online, like I said, now with everything going on in the world, online is the big to do. I'm actually currently working from home. So everything that I would do normally in my workday is being done via internet online. And I'm sure everybody's in a similar boat with work. I know school, everything going on online right now. So networking is no exception. You can do the same things you can do in person online, which is a very cool, very nice feature of the technological age that we live in. So who do I network with? Again, short answer is everyone. So as I said, if we're talking about, say, a school setting, you can network with your professors. You can network with your classmates. You can network with guest speakers, and you can network with workers, really anybody that you come across on campus. So professors, easy way to network is stay for 5 minutes after class if the professor has time and just talk to them. See what's going on. If you have a question about class, if you just want to kind of say, hey, this is my name, this is who I am, this is my major. All could be good ways to start a networking relationship. Go visit their office hours, talk to them. You never know what kind of connections your professors are going to have to, say, an internship opportunity or a job opportunity down the road or anything like that. The whole point of networking is building a mutually beneficial relationship. So if you start that early, there's much more of an opportunity for that to branch out down the road and benefit both of you. You can network with your classmates. So say you're in a group project with someone. Perfect networking opportunity. Talk to them, get to know them a little bit, see what they like, what you like, transition that. And again, down the road, that could lead to a very beneficial relationship. And it could be a very beneficial relationship today. You could help each other study, help each other learn. It's everything like that is helpful with networking. Guest speakers are another great opportunity for networking. So usually guest speakers are somebody who is successful in one way or another in terms of the class that you're in at that point. So guest speakers love to answer questions. They love to talk to students, obviously, or they wouldn't be their guest speaking. So that's always another opportunity to go up after the presentation or what have you and speak to them. Most guest speakers will leave their email, or you can find them on LinkedIn, something we'll talk about in a little bit. And then you can connect with them and talk to them. And again, build this mutually beneficial relationship for down the road. And then again, you can even network with workers. So you're walking around campus and you see somebody there mulching or helping with the landscaping, something like that. Network with them, talk to them, build up relationships. I cannot possibly say or put into words how important it is to make connections and not be afraid to go and talk to people from all different backgrounds, all different areas, all different functional areas. There's nothing wrong with making relationships with as many people as you possibly can. So now if we're going to look at a more professional work environment, who can I network with there? Well, you can network with your coworkers, you can network with executives, and you can network with anyone in between. Same concept as when you're at school. So coworkers, you're kind of naturally going to be networking with some more than others, right? So you're going to be part of a team at work, so you're going to have interaction with those people. So there's nothing wrong with taking that interaction and building it into a more network type relationship. You could obviously just go into work, deal with these people on your team from the hours of 9 to 5 when you have to, if you have a meeting with them, whatever. But that networking could be, hey, why don't we go get lunch today? Or, hey, do you want coffee tomorrow morning? I'll bring some in. Anything like that can help build a relationship. And again, mutually beneficial. So down the road, You never know what that relationship's going to lead to. And honestly, you might be saying, well, what if that relationship doesn't lead to anything? Oh well, there's still nothing wrong with just having a better relationship with people. It'll not only improve your quality of life, but it'll improve your quality of work happiness as well. Because the more relationships you have, the more at home you'll feel, the more comfortable you'll feel, and you'll have a better time at work. So that's important as well. Executives are another group of people that you can interact with at work, network with. So not just your manager, but maybe your VP or your CEO or anything like that. You see them walking through the hallway, just, hey, how are you? Easiest form of networking, just walking by someone, saying hello to them. A lot of people discount that, but then you're the person that, say, that executive's going to remember. Oh, even if they don't know who you are, they'll be like, oh, that's the person that says hi to me every morning, or that's the girl that always has a smile on her face when she walks by me. Stuff like that that you probably take for granted or don't even realize you're doing is very important, and it's the foundation to starting a relationship. They say first impressions are everything, and that's true. And you only get one chance. So with somebody like that, your first impression might be a smile or a, hey, how are you? You never know. So make sure you always think about stuff like that when you're at work and even when you're not at work. And of course, you can network with other professionals. So this would kind of be the category where it's not necessarily people you work with or people you interact with on a daily basis, but maybe you'll see them for something work related, or maybe they're just a friend of yours or a friend of a friend. Great way to build your network out and then even expand into their network. The web will keep expanding. If you kind of remember that picture that I had on the last slide, that web of people that you network with will be ever expanding, because as you add more people to your network, their network becomes more accessible to you. And that's kind of how LinkedIn works, which is, again, something that we're going to touch on a little bit later. Okay, so how do I network? Well, again, many different ways. So as I was kind of talking about earlier, talk to classmates. So speak to classmates or whoever. Just have a conversation. Hey, how are you? Something like that. Very simple. And same goes with professors or anyone really in that, for that matter. Meet with professors. So as I said, maybe not just meet with them after class for 5 minutes, but take that extra step and go to their office hours. Have a constructive discussion with them. Professors are going to love talking to you, having that conversation, and especially if it's something that you're both mutually interested in. Again, that's something we're going to touch on in a little bit. So reach out to coworkers. Again, that's just that action of going above and beyond your normal 9 to 5, oh, we have a meeting interaction. Talk to them. See what their interests are. Maybe it's sports. Say, hey, did you see the Phillies game last night? Something like that. All a good foundation for a networking relationship. And here we're going to talk about emailing and writing to executives. So this is a little bit of a different ballgame. Some good advice I've heard that I'm going to touch on a little bit later is to reach out to people that you admire or people you want to be like or just people you want to learn something from. So a good way to do that is to email these people, or if you have an address for the company they work at, write to them. And that writing is going to go a long way, maybe even a little bit more than an email. So that's kind of a different ballgame, but we will touch on that a little bit more later. And then lastly, a good way to network, especially now, is using LinkedIn. And we're going to go more in depth with that right now. So what is LinkedIn? Basically, it's a professional networking site. Everybody on this call, if you don't already have LinkedIn or you have it and don't really utilize it, I encourage that to change. I encourage you to use LinkedIn as much as you can. Get on there at least for a couple minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day. Just make it part of your daily routine. If you're working, make it part of your morning routine. Like, oh, I have to check my emails, then I have to check my LinkedIn. Could be something like that. Could be something when you're at home, laying down, just hanging out, watching TV. Oh, I'm going to go check my LinkedIn for 15 minutes. Perfect opportunity. Any time of the day, anywhere you are, LinkedIn's easy to use, very accessible. So it's basically a way to connect with others. You can connect with people. That's literally what it's called, connecting. You can connect with them and then you'll see what each other posts. It's basically like a more professional version of Facebook. Same kind of basic concept. You connect with them. You can share stuff. They can share stuff with you. You'll see their feed, so on and so forth. If you don't have LinkedIn, I'm sure you get the gist of it. Another interesting feature on LinkedIn is you can join groups. So a lot of people I don't want to say don't know about this, but they tend to not utilize this function. So on LinkedIn, you have the ability to join groups. I'm part of a couple different groups. For my specific job, we do a lot of telecommunication work. So I'm part of a couple telecommunication groups, a couple oil and gas groups. I'm part of an alumni group for Penn State. So there's all different kind of groups you can join. And they don't even necessarily need to be related to your profession. They could be related to maybe a sports networking group, anything like that. Whatever your interest is, there's going to be a group for it. And then within that group, if you're basing this foundation with these other people on this mutual interest, that's a great way to start networking with individuals that are also part of this group. You can follow different topics of interest. So like I said, I follow a lot of telecommunication things on LinkedIn given my career. You can also I follow Wall Street Journal for interesting news updates. You can follow sports teams. You can follow areas of interest, different authors that you like. You can follow different, even actors, TV professionals, everything and anything is out there on LinkedIn. So it's a way to just find people with like-minded interests and then build that connection based on those mutual interests. And then lastly, and probably most importantly on LinkedIn, is sharing content. So the way the LinkedIn algorithm works is the more active you are, the more people are going to see your posts. So if you're posting more stuff, liking more stuff, commenting on more stuff, sharing more stuff, more people are going to be exposed to that content that you're sharing. They'll see your page, they'll see your face, your job, and that's important because the more people that see what you're posting, what you're doing, the more opportunities you have to connect and network with people, which is very important. That's the whole point of LinkedIn. So that's why I said if you have a LinkedIn and don't really use it, I would encourage you to start doing so because then you'll be able to reap the full benefits of it. Okay, so now that we talked about different ways to network and different people to network with, what do you say when you want to network with somebody, especially over LinkedIn or somebody that you don't really know, maybe an executive, someone like that? So if it's one of these people that you're not really familiar with, you're just reaching out to them, be professional. So I don't mean you need to be fancy or something like that per se, but make sure that you're spelling everything correctly. No grammatical errors. I always lead off with calling them Mr., Mrs., or Miss and their last name. That's important. Now, probably 99 times out of 100, that person is going to reply and say, please just call me by my first name. But doing that extra step of calling them Mr., Mrs., or Ms. shows a respectful relationship that you're building. And they'll appreciate that whether or not they want you to keep calling them that. Introduce yourself. So my go-to currently when I'm trying to network with someone is, hey, my name's Tyler Wackley. I graduated from Penn State Berks in May of 2020 with a degree in business marketing management, minor in psychology. I'm currently an inside sales specialist at Gai-Tronics, a Hubble company. That's pretty much my go-to right now. And that's just my first couple sentences to lay it out who I am. This person doesn't know who I am. And the most important part of the message you're sending to them is who you are. If you don't lay that out in the first sentence or two, they're probably just going to delete your message and move on because they don't know who they're talking to or what they're going to talk about. Then that little introduction will also give a little cue as to what I'm going to talk about. So Penn State, if you're a Penn State grad, leading with I graduated from Penn State is a huge plus because then you have the largest alumni association in the world. And odds are that if the person you're talking to didn't go to Penn State, they know or work with someone that did go to Penn State. So that's a great icebreaker right there. And then when you give away your job title and where you work, again, you're just expanding the possibility that they know somebody that you know or that they can at very least relate to what you do or who you are. And then work on establishing a connection. So before you reach out to someone, I would encourage you to kind of do a little bit of research. Look on their LinkedIn, Google them, especially if they're more of an executive, a higher up person, there's going to be a lot of information out there. Maybe they went to the same school as you. Maybe at some point they held the same job as you, or maybe they played a sport or were in a group that you're in college. Great ways to break the ice. Just, hey, I noticed that you played so-and-so in college. Or I noticed that you're very interested in writing books. I am too. Establishing that connection is very important because that's going to make them more interested in you and who you are and what you're offering to them. Asking for advice is another big one. So people love to talk about themselves and love to talk about what they're interested in. So if you ask them for specific advice on something, people will love to give you advice. So a great lead into that would be, hey, I saw that when you graduated college, you started working in this position. I noticed that's really similar to my position that I'm currently in. What advice would you give yourself when you were in this position, knowing what you know now. Something along those lines, a great icebreaker, because then that establishes that connection and they'll be interested because they'll say, oh, this person is in the shoes that I was in 30, 40, 50, 20 years ago, whatever. Another great way to just kind of, I don't want to say force them to respond, but give them more of a reason to respond, if that makes sense. Be concise. So something you don't want to do, especially when reaching out for the first time, and especially when reaching out to, say, an executive or somebody that has a lot of contacts and a lot of responsibilities, is ramble. You want to make sure that you're concise. You have to get your point across still, who you are, why you're speaking to them, but you don't want to just keep going and going and going and going, because unfortunately, they will not read it. They tell you that a lot in school growing up, that people don't really read beyond the first couple lines of an email if they don't get interested in it right away. That is correct. They will not read past those first couple lines. So make sure that you're concise, but you're getting across your point. And then always end with a thank you. Pretty much any email I get and I respond to, whether it be a personal email or work email, I always end with thank you and then my signature. It's just a great way to end no matter what. It's just the right thing to do, in my opinion. And the person that you're talking to will appreciate that as well. So whatever you do, do not do this when you're reaching out. So this is actually a message that I got on my LinkedIn on June 30th at 11:21 a.m. The content of the message isn't exactly what's important. That's a fine message for someone to send to me. However, as you can see, it says hello and then 2 asterisks and name in between them. So obviously this person is just using a templated message and they forgot to change the word name to Tyler. This is an absolute no. As you can probably guess, I did not respond to this person. If I sent this message to someone and then look back on it, I would not expect them to respond to me because they didn't even take the time to proofread it. So again, this goes along those lines of being professional, making sure that you're checking over what you said and that it all makes sense and sounds good. Please, when trying to network with someone, don't be this guy. Double check your work and make sure that what you're saying makes sense. Now we're going to talk about not getting upset. So I've been pretty upbeat about all this, but the reality of it is the higher up you go to network with someone, the less chance you have at responding. So if you're at them responding, So if you're reaching out to a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, unfortunately, the odds of them reaching out are pretty slim to none. I'm not saying don't reach out to them. Absolutely worth a shot. I've done it. I think it's still a great thing to do because you never know. But don't get upset if you don't hear a response. Sometimes you might get an unexpected answer. So they may answer just really quickly, really briefly, might not actually answer what you asked them. Don't get upset. Again, it's just a time thing. People take their time very seriously, especially the more and more responsibility that they get. So if they just kind of give a quick answer, just be grateful for that answer. Don't get upset. And then, of course, sometimes, like I said, you won't get a response. So a good way I like to look at it when I don't get a response is I try to use that as motivation. So if someone doesn't answer me, if I reach up pretty high in an organization and I don't get an answer, I stop and I think, well, when I'm in that position, years down the road, I'm going to make sure that I try to respond to as many of these emails that I get from people that I possibly can, because I know how it feels to be on the other end of it. So I don't want to put somebody on that end. And again, with times changing, when people that you're reaching out to now were my age, early 20s, just graduated, they didn't really have email as readily available to just reach out to people. They certainly didn't have LinkedIn or the opportunities that we have now. They pretty much just had pen and paper. So it was a little bit different back then. So now that transition is kind of a little bit different, but still, like I said, I like to use that as motivation. And then there are certain cases where you can reach out again. These are kind of slim, but if you're inquiring with someone about a job, which I would say is a type of networking, and they don't get back to you right away, give them, a couple days, maybe a week, and then reach back out and just say, hey, making sure that you got my previous message or something to that effect. If you're just reaching out to someone to try to connect with them and they don't answer, I would just let it go. Don't worry about it. But there are certain specific cases where I would say reach out again. And then sometimes you get responses or you get reached out to, and it's too good to be true. So what do I mean by that? I've had a couple of instances where I've had an offer come to me that is definitely too good to be true. So sometimes these come in the form of sales pitches, which there's nothing wrong with making a sales pitch to someone. Absolutely. but you kind of have to read between the lines and see what they're offering you. If you're just on your LinkedIn and you get an unexpected job offer that you feel you're not qualified for or you didn't apply for, it's probably too good to be true. I got a couple of these in college, and the first one that I got, I kind of took the bait on and met with the guy. And then afterwards, I realized how dumb that was of me. I stopped and I thought, not that I don't have confidence in myself, but why would this random person be reaching out to me, a college student with no experience, and asking me to do this job? Doesn't add up exactly, and I realize that now. So again, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And then a lot of times these jobs that these people are offering you randomly turn out to be pyramid schemes, probably not something you want to get involved in. So here's an example, and again, this is a message that I actually received on my LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, this may be a weird question, but with you just starting out of work, but out of curiosity, would you say you're open to business opportunities outside on top of work to earn extra income or diversify? So I read a book one time about sales pitches that are trying to get you for a yes answer. Usually those yes answers, when they're forcing you to say yes, are going to be too good to be true. And here's the perfect example. So would I be interested in earning extra income and diversifying outside of my job? Of course. But what is this guy going to offer me? More than likely nothing too good. So I, again, ignored this message. But you do I don't want to say you get a lot of that, but every now and then on LinkedIn and sites like that, you will end up getting some kind of offer similar to this. So now that I've kind of went through all of this, why does networking matter? Why does it matter to a college student? Why does it matter to a high school student? Why does it matter to someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up the board? Why does networking matter? Well, networking matters because networking can land you internships. Networking can land you your first time job. So I'm going to revert back to the beginning of my presentation where I said networking is kind of an all-encompassing term. It's how you present yourself, it's how you act, it's how you get your job done. So if we're looking at it in this sense, networking is what could literally propel you to your ultimate career goals. Making sure that you act appropriately, that you get done what you need to get done, that you're doing everything that your job requires you to do, and then some. That could lead you to from an internship to full-time employment, or from your current position up way on the ranks where you want to be. So as I said, full-time employment. And then if you look at the statistics, over half, in fact, 56.1% of 2018 senior interns landed full-time jobs at that company. That is a lot. And the only reason that this 56.1% landed these full-time jobs is because they came in, they did their work, they showed that they belonged and that they earned their position. And that's true. I know I'm focusing on an internship standpoint, but that's true of full-time jobs as well. When you get that full-time job, showing that you deserve to be there is very important, as you can see. And that statistic was from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And then, of course, future opportunities. So the more you network now in the all-encompassing way, meaning the harder you work, the more stuff you get done, the more future opportunities that will be able to present themselves. I'm not saying that working hard and doing everything you can guarantee a future opportunity at the company you're in. But what I can guarantee you is that working hard, doing your job well and correctly and going above and beyond will land you a future opportunity somewhere. It may not be at the exact place you're at now, but somewhere that will help you in the future. And I promise that. I could guarantee it. And then you never know who knows who. So I've kind of earlier talking about networking with everyone. And again, you're probably saying, why would I do this? One, I just think it's the right thing to do. And two, you don't know who that person knows. Maybe your friend that you're talking to, maybe their uncle is the CEO of GE. Maybe their aunt is the CEO of Chrysler. You never know. You never know who knows who. So it's always important to put your best foot forward and don't slack when you're talking to people or when you're meeting people, especially in a professional setting. So it's not just me that thinks networking is important. I mentioned earlier that quote. That quote was from Steve Schwarzman, who says to write and call the people you admire and ask for advice or a meeting. Steve Schwarzman is one of the 30 richest people in the entire world. He's actually from Philadelphia, Abington, I think to be exact. He's middle class family growing up, ended up going to Yale. went to Harvard Business School for his MBA, and then he ended up co-founding a company called Blackstone, which is a very large private equity firm worth in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and that firm is called Blackstone. And this is the advice he gives. So not just me, but professionals as well. And then John D. Rockefeller has a quote attributed to him saying, "A friendship founded on business is better than a business founded on friendship." So again, building these relationships based on mutual connections is so important and can lead to unseen opportunities down the future that you never thought possible. I can't possibly stress enough how important I believe that is. So as a quick summary here, do be respectful when you're reaching out to people, whether that be in person, writing, or online. Always make sure you're being respectful and professional, especially, as I said, if you're reaching out to those that you don't really have any prior relationship with. Be concise. Again, too long, people aren't going to read it. Make sure that you're concise and that you're getting your point across. Find common ground. That common ground could be anything. Hey, we're from the same area. Hey, we went to the same school. Hey, I saw on your LinkedIn you shared a post about the Phillies. I like the Phillies too. Anything like that could be common ground. Be confident. So it's important that, especially in person, because you can tell the confidence level in person, obviously much more than online or over writing. Make sure you're confident. Firm handshake, look the person in the eye, introduce yourself. Act like you belong there because you do. That's what's important. And then lastly, be yourself. So you don't want to present yourself as someone you're not. Don't lie. Don't BS them. Make sure that you're just telling them who you are. That's who you are. Couple of don'ts. Don't pester them. Like I said, unless it's one of those very rare occasions, if the person doesn't reach back out to you, just let it go. It's okay. Don't keep bothering them. Don't get upset. As I said, sometimes you're going to get a response or not a response, and it might make you feel a little bit upset, a little frustrated. Don't sweat it. It happens. Like I said, use that as motivation. And lastly, don't wait. If you haven't really been big into networking yet, start now. As I said, it's important to start early, and it's also never too late to start. So start networking. Use your LinkedIn. Write to people. Email people. Never too late. Don't wait. Start today if you haven't started yet. And if you have started, go above and beyond and keep building that network. Okay, so that's kind of my presentation. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tyler Wackley, like I said. And then there's my email if you guys would have any further questions. And I think we actually have some time for questions right now.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Lots of great information. I would just encourage the audience to go ahead and give us some Q&As in the webinar here. I am one to admit that I don't use my LinkedIn as much as I should. I log in, and when I log in, I always see stories from Tyler, right? And I guess maybe it's part of, they say people get comfortable in relationships. So, I've been in my current position for 9 years, but I can definitely see how I can, I stress to my students that it's so important as they're looking for their first job, but you've lit a little bit of a fire under me to make sure that I start to put my LinkedIn into my, daily routine. So at this point, I'm just going to invite Sonia to go ahead and join us for a couple of question and answer. And again, remind the audience to go ahead and give us some questions for Tyler here today.
So Tyler, even though we're on Zoom here, I'm getting the sense that you might be a little bit of an extrovert. Okay. So, have you always been so outgoing? And for a student who may not be as Tyler-like, and more of an introvert, is this something that you can learn to do?
Sure. So I've personally always been loud and outgoing. I still get yelled at today by my family, by my girlfriend, by probably you and Lisa in the Learning Center for being too loud, too rowdy. And that's okay. So that's just kind of my personality. But even someone that's not as outgoing, there's no reason why you can't. I don't want to say learn to be more outgoing, because I don't think you should necessarily try to change who you are. But there's no reason why you can't reach out, especially in today's day and age, where you can do more online and more not necessarily first person. And then that'll help break the ice too. So if you can reach out to someone via LinkedIn, say, kind of start building a relationship, it'll make it less awkward when you meet them in person. So you kind of eliminate the need to be as extroverted because you almost have a relationship built with them already, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you're going somewhere, or if you're at a meeting and you decide that you think it would be a good networking opportunity, how do you psych yourself up? Like, how do you get yourself into that mindset? Like, because I could imagine that some students are sitting there thinking, like, I don't even know where to start. So, like, mentally, what happens before you actually begin the networking?
Sure. So, and that actually brings up a good point that I kind of missed talking about in my presentation. So I tend to, when I want to like get into a zone, I try to think about where I want to get to. What do I want? What's my goal of my career? Where do I want to end up being at some point in the future? And that tends to get me excited, fired up about reaching out to people. It's important to note that when you get fired up, before you just go gung-ho reaching out to people, I like to settle down a little bit. I maybe give myself half an hour to kind of relax before I send some, like I said, big long message that I didn't really proofread because I was so excited. Settle down a little bit and then get that good balance. But the way I like to do it, to answer your question in short, is think about where I want to get and then how this person that I want to network with could possibly help me get to that point. And that kind of drums up the confidence to go and talk to this person or reach out to this person.
Good. Yeah. Another strategy, I know some people will draft an email to themselves and send it to see how it comes across. So that may be something people in our audience could consider doing
That's
too.
a great idea. I like that a lot, actually.
Thanks, Tyler. I have another question that just came in. Tyler, can you speak about the relationships that you made as a student and how scholarship recipients have a leg up if they make that touch with their donors if it's available?
Sure, absolutely. So in college, actually, one of the first relationships I built was with Dr. Hassler. He wasn't even a doctor at the time. That's how far we're going back. I was sitting in Dr. Hassler's Stat 200 class. It was a Tuesday morning. It was like Tuesday at 9 a.m. It was my first college class. And I would ask questions. I would go visit him in the Learning Center and kind of talk through the problems. And lo and behold, that led to an opportunity for me to work in the Learning Center, which pretty much led to the opportunity for me to speak to you guys today. So it's funny how all that stuff kind of works. That's why I kept mentioning the importance of networking with everybody. In terms of scholarship recipients, I actually received an award when I was at Penn State Berks. It was the Wackley Award, and I ended up reaching out to the development office and asking for the email of Mr. Wackley. And then him and I, still to this day, actually, we go out to lunch about once a semester and just catch up. If someone's donating money for a scholarship, I will tell you that person most likely has a lot of money, which means they most likely were very successful in their career, whatever they did. That person will have a lot of connections, will have a lot of opportunities for you. I'm not saying reaching out and talking to these people guarantees you a job offer, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And they love talking to the students that they give scholarships to. That's why they do it, because they want to speak to you, the students that received the scholarship. So you can't ever go wrong reaching out to the person that donated the money for your scholarship. They will absolutely love it, I promise.
Great, Tyler, thank you. Another question. So you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that you're working from home right now, and you're one of the students who in March had to kind of pivot to this virtual learning mode. Can you tell us a little bit about, the skills that you acquired in that transition for the end of your college semester that seem to be helping you now in your working environment, and just tell us about that a little bit.
Sure. So everything happened so quickly, and everybody was kind of in a rush to make these changes, obviously, to work from home, to do school from home, everything like that. So I know some people have had a harder time transitioning than others, and that's perfectly understandable because it's weird to not be in person. It's weird to have everything via Zoom or via email. But nonetheless, the skills that you can learn about working from home are important. One that I think is vitally important is that whether you're at home or in the office or at home or in a classroom, you still have to do the same amount of work, right? It's not changing. It's not like, oh, okay, cool, I don't have to do my homework anymore, or oh, my boss asked me to do this. Well, I'm at home, I could just push it off. That's not how it goes. The same consequences still apply. So it's important when you're home to kind of get into that I'm not at home mindset, if that makes sense. Like, I would recommend not doing all your stuff from your bed. I wouldn't sit on the couch with TV in the background like Dr. Hassler does with everything. I would make sure that you have a nice, I'm just kidding, by the way.
You did join a call at one point where you're not saying what you are doing right now. You didn't do what you're saying, so.
That's being a hypocrite.
I would recommend, yes, don't be like me. Don't join your 8 a.m. meetings in your bed. Yes, haha, funny. But really though, make sure you have a quiet place that you can go and really focus in for the day and on what you're doing, and present yourself like you would. If it helps you, dress like you would dress in work. You would be dressing like that anyway if we weren't here. So wear a polo and khaki pants, sit there and really get in your zone. I think that's very important to kind of keep your work mentality going and not slack off, whether that be school or work or anywhere in between.
Sonia, I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tyler, can you explain how you decide on maybe your initial reach out to somebody? So when do you do it, and what modality? How do you decide if you're going to maybe go knock on somebody's door versus send an email versus try to get them on LinkedIn? Is there any method to the process that you use?
Sure. So a lot of it starts out with your comfort level with that person, like I said. So if it's somebody that I kind of want to build my relationship with at work, for right now, actually, I would probably send an email, or we use Microsoft Teams where I'm working at currently. Send them a Teams message, a little bit more informal, because you kind of know that person, they kind of know you. So that's kind of the way I would go about that. Now, if it's someone, it depends on how I don't want to say, how motivated you are to really make a connection with this person. A big good one that you could do is write a letter. Type up a letter and sign it and send it. That tends to leave much more of an impact on people, especially if you're trying to reach someone that gets a lot of people reaching out to them. So if you're going to reach out to that, say, Steve Schwarzman, who I quoted, he, like I said, is literally one of the 30 richest people in the world. He probably has hundreds of thousands of people trying to reach him weekly. So if you want to make more of an impact on that person, if you think you have a better chance, maybe write something. Other than that, like I said, reaching out to someone on LinkedIn is perfectly acceptable. And one tip I will give you, if you're reaching out to someone you don't know, when you send an invitation on LinkedIn, that's what they call it, you can type a little message, like a little 500-character message. Just that would be the perfect place to do a little introduction. Like, hey, my name's Tyler Wackley. I graduated from Penn State. I work at Gai-Tronics. I thought it would be good to connect. Maybe we can have some kind of mutually beneficial conversation. Some kind of little introduction like that. So you're not just blindly connecting. Always including a little personal touch when you try to reach out to someone or connect with them is always important.
So as a quick follow-up, and maybe you can call me old school or old if you wish, but what is your take on, say, a business card? Do students your age have business cards? Is that something that you find useful?
So when I was a student, I didn't have business cards. And it's one of those things that you don't really think about, but since being in the professional world now, I guess you can call it, everybody has business cards still. And I actually did get advice one time from a guest speaker that go on and get business cards with yourself. Just, your name, your phone number, your email, maybe some kind of logo or even a picture if you want of yourself. And you can go on and get like 500 free business cards from one of these websites if you just sign up. And that's, again, that would be another good way to do more of a personal touch, a personal invite, especially if you're meeting someone. That would actually be a great idea for if you have a guest speaker or something like that you want them to remember you. Walk up to them after, hey, here's my business card, has all my contact information. Can I have your information to reach out? That'll leave a lasting impression. So I would say anything business card like that with a personal touch is a great idea.
So I know up until this point, Tyler, a lot of the focus has been more external, but I'd like for you to share, what are the ways that people can network with their instructors? Like, what opportunities were presented to you with the people who, were either business instructors or even maybe like the Career Center? Can you tell us a little bit about that and how our incoming freshmen or even our more seasoned students can kind of develop those relationships?
Sure. So first and foremost, and this is going to sound, I don't want to do that, sit in the front of the class. I always sat in front of the class. I know, of course you do, blah, blah, blah. I would always sit in the front of the class. And I noticed that made a difference because just naturally you're going to interact more with the instructor when you're sitting in front. They're going to see you and remember you. So first step, if you really want to make an impression, sit in the front. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask questions or give answers. I know sometimes it's kind of awkward and you don't want to feel like that person, like, oh, he's asking another question or she's answering this question. Don't be afraid to do that because, again, who cares what the other people in your class think? Really, when it comes down to it, you're trying to help yourself and you're not doing anything wrong either by asking questions or answering questions that are asked of you. So I would recommend raise your hand, answer their questions, and ask your own. And then I was touching on earlier, don't be afraid to meet up with your professor. Now, they might not have time right after your class, but for example, for Dr. Hassler, go visit him during his learning center hours. Other professors, go visit them during their office hours. I've never had a professor that wasn't more than willing to meet with me, especially if I make that initial reach out. I'm not saying every single professor is like that because they're probably not, but 99 out of 100 will be more than willing to sit down and talk to you. And it doesn't even need to be about the class. It could be about their interests. It could be about anything. And then in terms of the career services, like you mentioned, early, do it. You're better off going and as much as you can. So when I believe I was a sophomore, was when I first took my resume to career services to Tish Jepson. And she helped me refine it. I was telling her that I was looking for some kind of internship. I just wanted to try. And she said, yeah, sure. Like, here, we'll make your resume look good. And she said, don't get your hopes up. Like, a lot of internships only like to hire seniors. I had to apply to no less than 50 companies. And I heard back from one. And that one company is where I work for today. So don't be afraid to go to career services, talk to them about the best way to apply to internships, about your resume, about your cover letter, and then just blast them out there. It's going to suck at first because you're not going to hear back. It's going to get frustrating. You're going to be like, why aren't these people getting back to me? What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. Unfortunately, a lot of times you're just in that wrong age range of people that they're looking for. Just blast them. Eventually, probability and statistics says that eventually you'll hear back. The better chance you have, the more you send it out. So don't be afraid to just blast it. Even if you feel underqualified for it, send it out. The worst that happens is they don't answer you. Send it out. But first, refine your resume. Don't just go blindly sending stuff out there. Refine it.
Because if you don't, you'll just be a hot dog boy at the Reading Phillies, right, Tyler?
Yes.
Is that what it was? The hot dog boy?
There's nothing wrong with that.
I was a bat boy, then I worked in the clubhouse, and then I sold beer.
I remember all those conversations when he was looking to get an internship and was, applying. I remember all of those. He would come into the Learning Center and talk to us and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So, yeah.
Now, Tyler, that we've kind of pivoted and some of our students might be taking, remote learning for fall, so we're not going to necessarily have those same opportunities. Tell us about the Teams or the Zoom environment. What are the messages that we intentionally or unintentionally might be sending if our video's not on or, those kinds of things? Can you tell us a little bit about that and raising your hand based off of your experiences at work and in spring semester?
Yes. So even at work, there's going to be times, and you'll recognize those times. So there's going to be times where you could be more informal, more laid back. And then there's going to be times where you need to take everything more seriously. So for example, even people that I work with, they'll come and they'll tell me I always make sure I wear my polo in case I get a call from our vice president or from somebody higher up. Because so if I'm just talking to one of my coworkers, I could be wearing a t-shirt sitting on my couch. Nobody cares. But then they're not going to call me, but if our CEO Teams calls me and I'm sitting there on my couch in a cutoff that I just slept in, he's going to be like, what are you doing? And I'm never going to get that call again. And I might not have my job anymore. So I always would say to play it safe. And like I said, kind of treat it like you're at your job or like you're at school. I'm not saying, especially for class, you need to dress up, wear a collared shirt, but first have a shirt on and then sit straight up, have a professional looking background, don't have your TV in the background or something like that. And just make sure you're taking it at least as seriously as you would be in class. That would be my best advice.
Right, because that's a form of networking too. You know,
Correct.
when it comes time for you to request letters of recommendation, you know, which you might need to help build up your portfolio, you don't want to be in the position to not have those established relationships to help you
Correct.
move forward.
Correct. You don't want to show up to, say, Dr. Hassler's stat class looking like a slob, not talking. Even your professors, you have to remember, and Dr. Hassler's the perfect example, teaches, what, I don't know, 200 kids a semester about. So it's all about making that impression. So if you just go, and if we're on Zoom like we are now, if you never have your camera on, you never reach out to him, you never, ask questions, anything like that, well, then you go to ask him for a letter of recommendation. What's he going to put? Yeah, this person was in my class, period, send. Like, what else does he know about you? Nothing. And that's the same case with all of your professors. So that's why it's so important to, Sonia, like you said, make sure you're building those relationships and acting professionally to give them a reason to want to send a good letter of recommendation, because that's the perfect example. They don't have to. Your professor could absolutely say, I don't feel comfortable writing a letter of recommendation for you. Well, then what do? You're like, oh, okay. And at that point, it's too late. You really can't revert that when you get to that point. So.
I know on your introduction slide, we had some of the roles that you had on our campus. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement to share with some of our incoming students, like what possibilities exist?
Sure. So I did a lot on campus. I was a Learning Center tutor for, I guess, 3 years, 3.5, 3 years, whatever it was. I was a Learning Center tutor, and that all started because, again, I was sitting in the front of the class at Dr. Hassler's statistics class. I was also a Lion Ambassador on campus, and that being a Lion Ambassador was always cool because I was able to make connections with families. So again, that was just expanding my network of people that come visit campus, which was always cool. And that's a group that you could apply to. It is the only closed club on campus, but it's a good group to apply to. And again, there's the perfect thing. It kind of teaches you that responsibility of applying, making sure everything you do is professional and everything you do is done correctly to submit it. Because if you don't do it all correctly, you're not going to be able to be in the group. And then lastly, I actually did an internship on campus with the Alumni and Development Office, which is kind of why I was able to answer that question about the donors so quickly. That was able to, again, that built out my network a lot because I actually got to meet with these donors and speak with them and talk to them. And oftentimes we would be at an event where students were welcomed and there were alumni there, that Penn State alumni, Berks alumni, that had these very cool jobs that were very well connected, and students tend to not really take advantage of that. And that's not the way to go. I would encourage you to pretty much anything on campus that you can get to that involves networking or involves alumni, go and do it, because that's the perfect avenue to talk to people that you already have a built-in connection with because they went to the same school as you. And they're more than willing to talk to students. They love it, actually. Any kind of alumni at Penn State will love talking to current students.
Great, thank you. Dr. Hassler, do you have any other questions for Tyler?
Let's see. I had a question about just in general, if you had to give students that are currently in college the best advice, what would you say is the best thing they can do right now to start creating that network? Like, what's the one thing? I know you mentioned a bunch of things, but in terms of, especially if they're an incoming freshman, thinking about 4 years out, they're going to have a degree. Like, what can they do today to start with that relationships?
Sure. So coming onto campus, the first thing, and I know everything's going to look a little bit different, at least for the time being, but anything that you can get involved in, do it. Don't be afraid to do it. I know even myself, it took me about a year before I really started to get involved on campus and do more things. And if I could go back and do it earlier, I absolutely would. Don't be intimidated or afraid to go and do these things, to apply to be a Lion Ambassador, to go and join clubs. The more that you do on campus, the more your network will expand and the more you will be noticed by everybody. So I would say the best advice I could give an incoming freshman is be involved often and be involved early.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Tyler. I think, we've had some great words of wisdom from you here about professional networking. By far, you have come a long way since that freshman year when you were sitting in the front row, as I can attest to in my statistics class. But needless to say, from all of us faculty and staff at Berks, we're proud of you, and we wish you the best of luck in your career. Keep in touch and make sure that you come back often. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Tyler, again. Also like to thank our tech tutor, Connor, who was standing by just in case we had any technical difficulties. And again, a special thank you to all of you who have joined us today for our LionSide Chat. As you do click out of our webinar, you will receive access to a survey. Please take a few minutes to complete the survey to let us know what your thoughts are about today's chat, and perhaps even offer some suggestions on what you'd like to hear about in the future. You're encouraged to reach out to us via email, and we remind you to keep checking our website. We actually just recently added some chats for August, so there's a bunch of new chats posted for next month. Our next chat, as shown here on the screen, will be on Monday at 4 p.m. Aubrey Edwards, who is a advisor, Penn State Berks advisor, will be talking about self-awareness, skills, and success in college. So be sure to come back soon, meet with another faculty, staff, or student from Penn State Berks to share their experiences. Stay safe, Berks and beyond. We are signing off until next time. We will see you on Monday. This has been the Penn State Berks LionSide Chats. Thanks again, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you, guys.